All right. I'm really I'm really impressed by the diversity of folks here, and you know I have my water background, and for me it's all about the water, um, but it's great to see such a spectrum of folks in extension working towards sustainability, and so I have my pieces, and I want to integrate with what other folks are doing, both in my institution and share with you all and learn from you all. We have 3 other sessions besides mine this morning. Then we'll have the lightning session and then a break. So I'm going to launch right into the water. So, you know, like this says, you know, it's a water planet. Our bodies are made 2/3 of water. The planet's covered 3/4 with water. But as water moves across our landscape, it dissolves most everything it touches. And so it's a solvent, and it carries that along with it to water bodies and elsewhere. My brief agenda is to talk about stormwater and talk about some programs that WSU is doing to address sustainable management of water and stormwater, and then kind of do a case study of how we chose an audience and the program that we implemented. So why stormwater? Well, really, for most water bodies, it's the #1 source of contaminants to most water bodies. Puget Sound especially is affected by stormwater runoff. So here's up in the top, there's a small map of Washington, and that red area is what's in these 2 satellite photographs. And so these satellite images on the left from 1972, that's the high tree canopy cover in the green. And then in 96 on the right, that's the high tree canopy cover in 1996. So you see there's been a lot of change in the Puget Sound area. And in terms of impervious surface, so surfaces that water doesn't soak into, that's increased by 35% between 1986 and 2006. Wait, I didn't switch that. So what does that mean? So our forested landscape has all these layers, you know, the upper canopy, the lower canopy trees, the shrub layer, the herbaceous layer, the duff layer, and all those points are points of interception of water. So you have some evaporation, some transpiration, some advection by wind currents. And so you have really not a whole lot hitting the ground until it rains and rains and rains, which it kind of does a lot in western Washington. But only after you get lots of rain does you really get runoff events in a well-forested situation. And that also allows time for water to soak into the ground more slowly, because when that top layer gets saturated because it can't move in too quickly, then it's running off quickly. And so in a more developed situation, you have much less opportunities for evaporation and transpiration. You have water saturating the surface really quickly and running off, and even not even having as much opportunity to soak into the ground. So you have less groundwater recharge, and you have a lot more runoff. And as you can see from this little cartoon, you know, you have a driveway, you have roadways, you have things running off those, you know, the zincs and coppers from cars, you know, oils and greases from cars. You have pet waste from lawns and weed and feed and other, gosh, I'm not advancing this, it's interesting. It's keeping me up to speed here. But stuff is running off our landscape in this excessive stormwater runoff. So, you know, contaminants we worry about, nutrients, bacteria, pesticides, toxic chemicals. And so there's the contaminants, and there's also the volume. So we have a lot more volume running off in a given storm and event. And our stream systems, our waterways evolved under much lower flow conditions. So we have streams down cutting, they're eroding, too much water is going too quickly. And here you can see a culvert, and that was probably put at grade level years ago, but with the excessive water coming through, it's down cut. So it's down cut that channel. And now salmon and other fish that migrate along that stream corridor can't get back up to access could be miles of habitat up beyond that culvert. So suddenly, much less habitat for a lot of our fish species that need to migrate. Some other effects of contaminants. So here's a juvenile with small, these eyes should be that large. But this was in water contaminated with stormwater. Shellfish beds get closed, and for Western Washington, a lot of Western states, shellfish are part of Native American culture. They're also a big industry for us. So what do we do about this in terms of sustaining our water resources? Low impact development is one tool, and WSU has a lot of efforts towards promoting, educating others, and getting low impact development principles out on the landscape. And so what does that mean? It means to, as we develop, because we are growing in our region, of course, like everywhere else, we want to have a hydrologically functional landscape, kind of like the forested situation. That's how the area evolved. But we also want to have our roads and houses and other things. So some of the basic principles of low impact development is to conserve and restore vegetation on those sites that we develop and keep those soils. Those soils can be big sponges. Also that top layer, there's a lot of organic matter, and that helps filter out contaminants or immobilized contaminants. So you want to keep those surface layers of soil intact as much as possible, as well as keep the vegetation. You also want to, that lower left, tall, skinny house, you want to reduce the envelope of your building structure, your footprint. So build up instead of out. So you have more functional landscape around your dwellings. And then on the right, that's a pin foundation. So that can be put right in the landscape. They're pure blocks with metal rods going down into the soil. And that's a code-approved technique for putting in a foundation. And that landscape is still semi-hydrologically functional in that situation. So here's a little site plan in the lower left. The house, we kept a lot of vegetation. The roof runoff is going to this rain garden. This roof is going out to that rain garden. So rain garden is a depression that can take excess runoff. It has a permeable driveway, a pervious deck. And then here there's a bioswale, so an open conveyance, drainage ditch, you could say. But that's lined with, well-augmented soils. And so when the road runoff comes off, it can filter into the ground through those bioswales. So we wanted to tackle this issue. We wanted to promote low-impact development. How do we get this to happen? Developers. We need to reach developers. But it's very hard to get developers in a room like this. So even if you give them lunch, a whole day is a lot, and there's a lot of information that needs to get across. So real estate professionals, a lot of brokers are small-scale developers. They can influence developers, and some big-scale developers are brokers themselves. So we wanted to make that connection. Also, real estate professionals, they're out talking to people every day, much more so than I can. And so it's an opportunity. People are buying that land. They want to do something with it, perhaps change it in some way. And if they know about these strategies, they can educate them about that. They can also educate them about other extension programs, like other things that we offer the community, 4-H and small farm programs and nutrition education and forestry and other things. So they can also carry those messages along with low impact development. And also, these brokers want to be knowledgeable on these issues. So there's some carrot there for them. I'll talk about another carrot in a minute. But issues of concern. So flooding basements, because this downspout was routed right next down to the foundation wall. So there they could shuffle it out to a rain garden further away from the foundation, and may not have these issues. So, and it also allows us as extension folks to connect with the stereotypical green skeptics, which actually, realtors cover a broad spectrum of backgrounds and folks. So here, here's one strategy. They're building an addition on this house and on the house next door. And this house, that's a conventional footing. But on the one next door, they're putting in that pin foundation. Much less impact to the landscape, much simpler. So the real carrot for realtors is they need clock hours in Washington State. They need 30 hours every 2 years. And they're willing to pay for those. And so they pay us for those to come to our classes. I have a series of classes, low impact development, one of them. So that's great because that helps me be able to pay a coordinator to put the class together. And doesn't really me, and I get presenters from other agencies and organizations, as well as we do hire some consultants at times. I've been involved with doing this since 1998. We cover other topics such as septic systems, wells, developing shoreline areas, et cetera. And so in a one-day program, and I have a case study on one of the one-day programs, that'll be 7.5 clock hours. So they do 4 of our classes every 2 years. They keep their licenses current. And so I have a little handout. I have a handout that's on your little zip drive that talks about how you might be able to implement this in your state. So, and maybe you're not particularly interested, but maybe a colleague is. So a quick little cheat sheet that's on your little zip drive. So yeah, we often find good instructors. They like our binders. They love the field trips. We get good caterers for lunch. That's really important. And once we forgot to have coffee first thing, that is really a no-no, these folks. Time? Oh my God. So anyways. So
my students ran away, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna go through this real quick. So this case study, we did 8 workshops around Washington State last spring. We covered, water resources. We had a field trip, we had debriefing, we gave them their certificates. But I wanted to talk about some of the evaluation. We did in-class polling, and so these really engaged the audiences from the get-go. So, we got a bunch of information from them. We did pre and post tests, and we also did a survey monkey a little bit down the road. So level of interest, there was a fairly, moderate to high level of interest beforehand. And then pre and post test, 80% answered the 10 questions correctly before, 95% were answered correctly afterwards. We evaluated the actual program, right after the fact of how they liked each section. The marketing wasn't so hot in that one. Then the Survey Monkey, 2 to 4 weeks down the road, we sent out a Survey Monkey, and yeah, if you add them together, the greatly and significantly greater understanding of how LID techniques reduce contaminants was thought, 90%. And again, how LID reduces stormwater runoff, about 90% had greatly or significantly greater improved understanding. So then we asked them, okay, would a webinar be just as good? No. Would they recommend this? Yes. Did they like the binders? Yes. We created some fact sheets. We did some videos as part of this, so it's all available online for them to share with colleagues, with clientele. So then in the future, we probably will do some online modules because in Washington State we have over 20,000 realtors, and we can't really make it to all of them to do these in person. So we'll probably do some online ones that they'll have to pay for and give them clock hours. Some definitely more classroom and field-based, and then some longer-term evaluation of this program probably happen this winter. Thank you. And I have to recognize Erica Gutman, my colleague. All right.